Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Joe Theodore, and it's an honor to have you here with me today. If you enjoy this talk, for anyone who is new, please consider subscribing to the channel, liking the video, leaving me a comment with your thoughts. That would be greatly appreciated. It always helps the channel grow for anyone who subscribes, obviously, but anyone who likes and comments, that really helps the algorithm. But yeah, guys. Aspects of the week. This is sort of my new thing for Sundays. I'm not going into weekly forecasts anymore, as many of you know. It's just too much of my time gets taken up, and I really try to provide an awesome monthly, and then I try to come on a couple of times a week just to talk about something very, very significant happening. Like, for example, I will make another video on the new moon in Cancer, because that is one of my aspects of the week today. But that's just an example. Like, I'm going to make another video on the new moon in Cancer, so I don't really have to do every little thing that goes on, and I'm sorry if some of you are not interested in, that kind of stuff. I know a lot of you love the channel, but I know a lot of people also love astrology channels for their in-depth weeklies, and the all sign stuff. And I know I seem to poke fun at all that, but I just feel like there's a lot of charlatans on YouTube. That's all. I think there's not enough authentic astrologers and even tarot channels. I know some people like tarot channels out there. There's so much hokey fanokey business out there. Anyway, before I go on a tirade, because I think Mars is really activated with me. I could already feel the Uranian energy bubbling up in my life with the Mars, the approach of Mars to Uranus. But yeah, guys, I want to talk about an aspect that I completely missed in my July forecast, and I feel so horrible about that. I'm kicking myself in the butt because it really is a pretty big transit. And that's Mercury going opposite Pluto. In my July forecast, I really completely brushed over that, and I really do apologize for not talking about that, but I'm going to talk about it now, obviously. But if you haven't seen the July forecast, go watch it, because I talk about everything else as accurately as I possibly could have, and I went over all the things I find to be very significant and important for July. That being said, before I officially begin, please check out my description box below for anyone who might be interested in furthering their astrological learning. I have a beautiful teaching portal that's affiliated with Patreon. You do not need to be a member of Patreon to purchase classes. Any purchase of classes really helps the channel financially. It helps me financially, of course, continue to provide free content here. And, any extra financial boost for me or anybody in the world really who dedicates their life to teaching, it just allows me to have more confidence and time to put into my videos, So, yeah, guys, and there's also, you can support me on Patreon if you want with a little monthly contribution. There's some perks that kind of go along with that, of course. And the most important thing, honestly, and it's my number one passion, is connecting with all of you one-on-one for readings. So if any of you wants a reading, please go to my website. All the links are down below. And I have pretty awesome options for different types of readings. And lately, one of my most popular have been the 12 to 15 month yearly ahead forecast, because the next 12 to 15 months are going to be world shifting and changing on the planet. There's a lot of astrology I'm going to be talking about as the future unfolds, involving what is to come in the future, which means we are going to be transforming in massive ways as well, especially because every single outer planet is changing signs, which I don't think many people understand how massive that is. Pluto is changing signs after 15 years. Neptune will be going into Aries after almost a decade. And Uranus is going to be going into Gemini in 2 years-ish, which, again, the whole world is going to change forever. We've never seen this before. So that reading option is really, really impressive. The way I've been helping people in that regard, looking ahead into their life, hearing what their stories are, it's been pretty profound. So, yeah, that being said, let's get right into this little aspects of the week video. So Mercury is ingressing into Leo. This aspect is at 1 degree Leo opposing retrograde Pluto at 1 degree. Now, this story is important because we're finally getting a lot of the personal planets that are going to be shifting into Leo season, right? Venus will follow after Mercury, then the Sun. And again, all these personal planets are just following each other for all these months. Like literally Mercury has been following Venus, and then Venus has been following Mercury, and then Mercury's been following Venus, and then the Sun has been moving through Taurus, Gemini. They've been together the whole time. And now we're going to see these transitions into Leo, which is now going to provide these personal planets with passion, right? This overwhelming sensation and drive to express itself as fully as it can. Leo is about being seen. It's about expression. It's about creativity. It's about leadership and taking charge of one's life, in a very logical, ethical, and passionate way. There's also a lot of pleasure associated with Leo, but being passionate and having that fun within the fire. So again, we don't want to take every single Leo archetype signification with every little planet in transit that happens in Leo, but there are significations that can go both ways in the light or the shadow. But overall, we're dealing with fire energy, right? We're going to be dealing with activations that are involving movement forward. Leo is fixed fire though, so it doesn't like going too far to the left or too far to the right. It likes stability. So we're coming from Cancer season, which has been very sensitive and emotional. And, there's been a lot of nurturing kind of energy coming on. I feel a lot of us have been getting hit with things on an emotional level, especially after Gemini season, so to speak. Now, what am I trying to say here? Oh my God, I just lost my train of thought, guys. So yeah, Cancer season will be shifting into Leo, and this is important because I feel after Gemini season into Cancer season, we are now ready for the fire. We're now ready for passion and for action and drive to really say now what we mean, so this could be a real elevation in our relationships, right? This could be an elevation in the way we communicate with others. So when we're dealing with Mercury, we're really talking about the thinking and the communication, right? So our thinking and our communication will be charged with passion, with action, and with authority even. So I feel a lot of us are going to want to step into some power with the way we think and the way we come to the world. I think we're going to want to use our intellect and our speech for, ways of standing up for what we believe in a way, and to be very expressive in our desires. And when Venus gets into Leo, I think that's going to be a big part of that story, this wanting to express in a very passionate way our desires, right? So I feel like Venus will be more activated instead of more receptive, just like in Aries, Venus wants to be more action, right? It wants to put its Venusian powers onto the world, into the world. And Leo, being the next fire sign after Aries, is all about bringing this energy to the world, instead of waiting for it, it's not being afraid to go for it. So with Mercury now going opposite Pluto, let's talk about Pluto. Again, oppositions and squares, challenging aspects really just depend on what's going on in your life and, what kind of challenges might arise for that. Because sometimes we do need tension in our life in order to evolve. So Pluto going opposite Mercury might just provide you with something extraordinary that will force you to come to terms with something that needs to potentially be transformed. So you might become faced with something intellectually or within your communication in the world, and especially whatever Leo occupies in your birth chart, you might be coming to a place where something might challenge you to transform. You may not be ready to face something that must decay and die, but at the same time, you're at the precipice of taking on a new way of thinking, a new way of communicating, whether with something, a new idea, a new frame of study, or with another person. Just something is going to be tested and challenged, but in a good way, I believe. I feel this challenge is going to be something we need in order to understand truth. And it will only make your Leo-ness more powerful if you have this transformative moment with Pluto. So, as someone who has Venus, Mercury, and the Sun, and Mars in Leo, I have a massive stellium in Leo. My Aquarius Pluto story that's going to be going opposite for the next 20 years of my life is going to be wild. And, I'm already expecting there to be a lot of stress, potentially a lot of challenge. But, after talking with another astrologer, this is actually crucial for my growth as a man and as an astrologer, as someone who studies religions and philosophy, and someone who takes understanding truth in the world very seriously. So I feel I'm at a point in my life where the next 20 years, my evolution as a teacher, even as an author, because there are books I want to write in the future, there's a lot, and not even just on astrology, just on other very high spiritual philosophy stuff, which is sort of an aside from my astrology work. But, there's a lot of potential challenge to come along in my life with that Pluto, but again, it's going to transform me. I feel like I'm going to be doing nothing but shamanically elevating myself and almost collapsing at the same time. There's going to be such a up and down, process that is going to be extremely important for me to get through the next 20 years of my life until I get to maybe the age 50. And then I feel like once I get into my mid 50s and on, I feel like my experience with my Pluto oppositions to my stellium are going to be life-changing. So for me, I think Pluto, no matter what the aspect, is this very shamanic, transformative seeking of truth, so no matter what truth reveals itself and how it reveals itself is crucial for our growth intellectually, emotionally, potentially physically, even though I wouldn't associate Pluto to be anything, physical illness, stuff like that. Maybe, there could be like death type of archetypes around Pluto. But again, I feel, the death conversation is a whole other deal, but I'm not going to get into that. But again, when it comes to the Pluto opposite Mercury, even when Pluto goes opposite Venus and Pluto goes opposite the Sun all in the next month, we're going to see a lot of these shinings of light on things going on in the Leo part of your life that are going to be faced with a very sharp opportunity for truth to transform you. Because Pluto wants to pretty much either rise you up or break you down for the revelation of some kind of shamanic truth, transformative truth, right? And I think that could only amplify whatever planet it touches, So yeah, I think I said enough about that, guys. Mercury, the planet of intellect, thinking, thought, communication, analytics, anything that has to do with using the mind and using your thought to get things across in the world, to communicate, to, whatever the case may be. We're going to see that get elevated and heightened and, again, just sort of like a supercharged moment with Mercury this week. So this could be even sudden insights in transformative ways of the way you think, If you've been engaging in new relationships since the new moon in Gemini, right, and as we've carried into the emotional systems throughout Cancer, once we get into Leo, we can have very transformative psychic insight, that could really either enhance things going on or degrade, So, but again, transformation is kind of the theme, whatever Pluto is dealing with, or things that could be destructive, only for them to reveal to you the new birth that needs to arise somewhere. Okay, guys, so the next aspect I have, and that's happening on Wednesday, by the way. I have had a chart up the whole time, but you guys already knew that, obviously. And Friday, the other aspect I have to talk about is the new moon in Cancer, guys. So while we're dealing with what I just said on Wednesday about the first opposition from Pluto to Mercury, because this will be the first opposition of three, obviously, second being Venus, third being the Sun, we're going to have a new moon in Cancer, which means simultaneously there will be a moment to plant seeds in a very emotional way. Something very emotional will be arising for you in the Cancer part of your story, something that will allow you to start anew in a very emotional way. So I hate to say this for some of you, maybe, but there are some things that you might have been focusing on or dealing with or being a part of involving your interpersonal relationships or whatever that has to do with anything you've been involved in that you've been really feeling super, super connected to. I feel for some of you, you might have some kind of a sudden breakdown where emotionally you might feel like there's a cleansing coming upon you. And it may be that something might have to dissolve so you can start a fresh slate, emotionally speaking. And maybe the Pluto activation to Mercury is kind of like your mind coming to terms with this ending, this collapsing. But again, that new moon in Cancer is something you should meditate upon and use some shamanic astrological magic with, because that, I feel, will provide you with this feeling of rebirth, you know? Sometimes when things have to end, or if we know that things are dissolving or things are suddenly decaying, you know, once we accept that death of that relationship or that idea or that, you know, intention. I know a lot of us with the Capricorn full moon stuff and after all the Gemini story stuff, you know, with, you know, the superficial connecting and the relationship building and the starting of new endeavors, you know, for some of us, we might see emotional rebirths in some of that might not be working out or didn't work out. Or again, if things are working out, which I feel for a lot of us, things are working out in that direction. This rebirth moment for a new moon in Cancer is going to just make us feel super enlightened, you know? Like we might feel an emotional burst of like, oh my God, I really am on the right track. Or oh my God, I really need to kill the old part of myself that is not who I am now. Like I feel I really have transformed in the last 2 months. And this new moon in Cancer can be like that moment where you just break down in tears or you dive into the ocean and you're sort of baptizing yourself officially, you know, into this new version of yourself. So the new moon in Cancer, I think, could be a beautiful moment to recognize the rebirth, recognize the baptism, symbolically speaking. And to allow what Pluto is going to do to these oppositions, because I feel like one after another, Mercury, Venus, the Sun, Pluto is going to be hitting at opposition. It's going to be like the final, you know, death of the old ego you might have had, you know, the old perception of yourself, the old perception of the way you were interacting with the world or feeling in the world. You know, so this new moon in Cancer really couldn't come at a better time when Pluto is hitting all these personal planets, opposite. You know, because it's going to feel maybe uncomfortable. But at the same time, I think this new moon in Cancer is a beautiful moment of rebirth emotionally, you know, on a very deep emotional level. So the intention for me to you for a new moon in Cancer is to, one, see whatever Cancer is in your birth chart and to see what seeds can be planted emotionally there. Like what can you say to yourself and, you know, what is going on that you can say, all right, I'm ready for an emotional renewal. Like I'm ready to, you know, birth something new on a very spiritual and emotional level and to really feel into it. So it should be a day of really feeling a lot, like really check in with how you're feeling with whatever you need to check in with, you know, even if it's not part of your Cancer story. But honestly, whatever the Cancer story is in your life, that's most likely what's getting activated, you know, because something wants to be birthed there, right? Something new, something wants to be, like seeds, something in a seeding way wants to get planted. And we are going to have another full moon in Capricorn as well, guys. So this new moon, again, is a seeding point for another cycle to Capricorn. So when we get back to Capricorn, we're going to review whatever the Cancer new moon story was. So again, this part of the July story is really kind of sinking into the emotions, the rebirth, the whatever, you have to come to terms with, in whatever's been going on in the last couple of months, whatever Mercury and Venus and the Sun have been bringing up for you in Cancer. Because now we're going to start feeling that in the deepest of ways. And we're going to have to use our intellect with Pluto's opposition to kind of understand something transformative, right? Understand something that might be important for you to let go of, And I think Pluto is really a master at forcing you to maybe confront an old version of yourself to allow the new version of yourself to enter, right? Because I think a lot of us have been facing very identity-like issues and concerns. I mean, that was what the eclipse was about. So that story is still following us, guys, So especially that Chiron has been making aspects to Cancer, like I said in one of my other videos, So there's been these, upheavals and reminders of the Chiron Aries eclipse stories. And Mercury being the retrograde planet that was active during that eclipse, now being hit by Pluto. I'm not saying there's really not an association to that necessarily by aspect to Aries, but I feel Pluto will be bringing up maybe something in that realm as well. But really, I think the focus of Pluto is what's been going on from the Gemini stories into the Cancer stories, right? Because those have been the most dominant and the most chaotic in the last month, right? The planets have been moving rapid fast from Gemini into Cancer. And now we're done with Cancer season almost, right? And Mercury is the first step out of the water into the fire, being hit with Pluto. And then we have this new moon moment, which is a very, very powerful seeding point for the Cancer part of your life and emotional renewal, right? And when we get back to the second full moon in Capricorn, we're going to be faced with another moment of taking your life seriously, right? The first Capricorn full moon, I really emphasize, that's all about taking your life seriously. What are you building? What have you been building? What have you been working on? Taking something in your life seriously so, you can see maybe the utmost potential of whatever the second round of Capricorn's full moon will be. So that's all I have for you guys. I know I bounced around a little bit. I hope you understand some of the things I was saying today. I will be making a video on the new moon in Cancer, this week. I'm not really sure what other videos I might make this week. Maybe something in the educational realm. Maybe something with Saturn retrograde, because that's really the next class I want to make. I want to do a retrograde class on Saturn. I'm not sure when I'm recording that yet, but Saturn will be retrograde for, months. So when I do my video on Saturn retrograde, I want to also have the class ready for anyone who wants to take the class. So yeah, guys, that's all I have for you today. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all next time.